and welcome back to another podcast episode with Brittney Bundles. You are listening to the Brittney Bundles podcast, where we empower people through entrepreneurship. And today, before we get into our topic, I'd like to give a huge shout out and thank you to Tawana for sponsoring today's episode. Tawana is the owner of Make Me Over Styles and a YouTube content creator. So check out her YouTube channel at Tawana Talking Tips. That is Tawana, T-O-W-A-N-A, Talking, T-A-L-K-I-N-G, Tips, T-I-P as in Paul, S as in Sam. She talks about business investments, Yanni consulting, website traffic tips, and more. She has over 65 value-based videos and has a new video that was just posted last week. So be sure to check out Tawana Talking Tips on YouTube and subscribe to stay connected. Thank you again, Tawana Talking Tips, for sponsoring this episode. All right. So again, welcome back to the Brittney Bundles podcast. Again, thank you, Tawana, for sponsoring today's episode. Check her YouTube channel out at Tawana Talking Tips. And today's topic is going to be on believing who people prove themselves to be in business. Again, that's believing who people prove themselves to be in business. Now, on this podcast, I talk very frequently about my grandmother. She is a very, very important part in my life. She's taught me so many lessons. And some of the lessons that she taught me as a child are just now clicking now that I'm an adult. So she would always tell me, Brittney, believe who people prove themselves to be. Believe who people show you that they are. And being young, I didn't necessarily fully grasp the true meaning of the statement that she was teaching me. Believing who people say that they were, believing who people prove that they were, And so the older that I got, I kept thinking about her statements and I kept thinking about the things that she told me growing up. And I started to apply that advice to my life. And not only did I apply it, but it started to make sense and it started to prove very valuable in my personal and also business life. Very often we like to assume that people are who we want them to be. We want to assume that businesses are going to conduct themselves as we anticipate them doing. But we have to realize, or we should realize, the older that we get, that not everyone has the same integrity, the same heart, the same mindset, nor the same goals as we do. Not saying that it's always a bad thing for someone to have a different goal than you, but I'm saying that to assume that everyone is out for the same purpose, or to assume that everyone is who you think that they are without allowing that person to prove themselves or without allowing that business to prove itself, can definitely cause a lot of heartache. It can cause a lot of lost money, and it can put you in a position where you're constantly feeling like you're not progressing in life the way that you want to progress. So today, like I mentioned, I want to talk about believing who people prove themselves to be in business, tips on how to do that, and how to still work through business with the feeling of disappointment and the feeling of trusting our gut and the awareness and the opportunity to allow people and businesses to prove and show us who they are so that we know which way we want to move forward in business or not. So if you are new to the podcast, thank you so much for being here. Please go ahead and share this episode, whether you're new or not. Share it on social media via Facebook, share it via Instagram, text a friend or family member the link to the podcast, or go ahead and turn up the podcast when you're in the car with another entrepreneur, family member, or friend that would value from this, or get value, from this episode. We're about to get started in just a moment. Welcome back to another podcast episode with Brittney Bundles. I'll be back in just a moment. Okay. All right. So I'm back. So we were talking about believing who people prove themselves to be in business. There are a lot of people that are getting into business partnerships without truly knowing who they're partnering with, without truly understanding what the sacrifice and investment that they're agreeing to is really going to take or really going to cost. The first tip that I have in believing who people prove themselves to be in business is learning to rationalize Emotion over logic, logic over emotion. And what I mean by that is, like I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, as people, we tend to make up who we think a certain person really is. You may look at how someone dresses and already in your mind assume how they're going to act, which is wrong. Because you're judging and profiling someone. But a lot of people do it. There are a lot of businesses and people that are in business that do it. That assume someone is a certain way based on the way that they dress, based on the way that they may have talked for a few moments, based on the way that they carry themselves, based on how they're groomed. And it's profiling. And doing that type of profiling has definitely caused a lot of businesses regret because they have disqualified people working with them or for them that were definitely overqualified in some instances to work for them. And it was a loss on the business end to not incorporate that person and their ideas and skills. And it also worked on the flip side where they didn't hire someone because they assumed that they were a certain way. And they didn't give that person the opportunity to explain who they really were, to see if they would be an asset or a liability. So we need to learn to rationalize our emotion over logic, logic over emotion, and weigh them on a scale. You may feel very compelled by a conversation with someone that you've had for over maybe an hour. You may feel sold on how a person interacts or how a person treats a certain person. You may feel very compelled to move forward in a business relationship because you may feel sorry for that person, or you may feel like they need the money and you can help with that without looking to see or giving them an opportunity to show you who they really are and their true intentions. So sometimes we need to allow logic, we need to allow our mind and common sense to be right there with our emotion. Not saying that we're going to forget about emotion and be stiff and cold, but saying that we don't want to operate solely on emotion. People that operate solely on emotion are not stable in a lot of instances. Take a lot of different experiences and a lot of different scenarios. You can have someone in a relationship who isn't stable. And when they get upset, they may want to break things because they're just not stable. They're overwhelmed with emotion and they don't have enough respect or enough self-restraint to stop that. They're just overwhelmed with emotion. You may have someone that's overwhelmed with emotion that may steal from your company. Switching back to business now. And because they don't have enough integrity, respect, or self-restraint, they're doing whatever they want, even though it's not ethical, so that they can settle that feeling of needing money urgently. Everyone that is a good person does not mean that they're the person for you in business. Every business that's a good business is not a business that you should partner with. Again, rationalizing how we feel and weighing that with the pros and cons of a business collaboration. So believe who people prove themselves to be in business. When I was in the salon, there were a lot of different people that came into the salon. And during interviews, I would give people the opportunity to speak, give them the opportunity to show their work, and give them the opportunity to even start if everything went good. And even when they were starting, I was still watching so that they can prove to me who they were. Some people, it takes a little longer and a little bit more observation to actually see what type of person they are. And even then, you still don't know all of them. You only know what someone shows you. But there was a time where, against my better judgment, I hired someone. And there were signs that told me, or red flags that showed me that I shouldn't hire this person because they lied, because they brought different negative vibes and negativity to the salon. They weren't honest with a lot of things. And so I felt compelled to help this person because I wanted to see this person succeed. And so not thinking about the negative pressure and the negativity that came with having that person in the salon, I began to look over a lot of things that they did because my emotion was wanting them to stay. I wanted them to stay because I knew they had bills to pay and I knew they had goals and dreams. But I wasn't thinking about the logical part and the negative effect that it had on my salon even after they decided to leave. Which brings me to my next tip. Be okay with moving forward alone if need be. There are lots of entrepreneurs that have come to me for consultations and they've severed business relationships and partnerships. And when they severed the partnerships, initially they were okay with it, but later on they started to regret their decision. Maybe because that person was contributing money that they're now not able to contribute to the business, or that they're not going to contribute because they're no longer in partnership. Or maybe because that person had great ideas and now this person is a sole owner of the company and only employee, and they don't really have any creative juices flowing right now, so they're wishing that they never severed ties. And there are some businesses that have decided to close because they did sever ties and they felt so alone and depressed about the separation in their business and partnership that they decided to close the business altogether and not move forward. But I'm here to let you know that moving forward alone, if need be, is okay. Not everyone is meant to go on the journey with you. Not everyone is meant to elevate when you elevate. Not everyone is meant to get the vision, and that's okay. But sometimes we have to reevaluate who is in our corner and who is going to be valuable to our business, as well as who we're going to be valuable to. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, we all have good hearts. A lot of us do. I'm not going to say everyone, but a lot of us have really good hearts. And that's the reason why a lot of people get into entrepreneurship, to help, to provide a solution to a need or a want, to be able to provide better customer service than they have experienced dealing with different businesses, to be able to connect with more people, to be able to help more people. So entrepreneurs, a lot of the entrepreneurs that I've met have had great hearts and great reasons as to why they started their business. And so we need to learn and we need to know the value that we hold within our business and the people that are benefiting. And so we need to also make sure that as much as we're looking out for other businesses and other people, that we're also expecting something in return. A lot of times we do things and we don't expect anything in return. There are entrepreneurs that sell products and are taken back when they ask for the money for their product. They don't like doing that. And I'm not here to talk about how anyone feels personally as far as if your feelings are justified or not. But I'm saying regardless if you're having those feelings or not, your product still costs money at the end of the day. You still need money to operate your business. And you still want to make sure that your business can do what your vision is producing or showing you. And also, sometimes your business goes even past the dreams and the vision that you had. But it's a value that needs to get out regardless of how we feel, if that makes sense. Feelings are important, but feelings should never always be the sole driving force of what we do in business. There are days that I don't feel like doing my job. There are days that I don't feel like getting out of bed. There are days that I don't feel like being nice, right? I mean, we're all human. There are days, especially during the time of the month, I don't feel like being nice all the time. But I do it because I'm using my logic and I'm using my heart and I'm using integrity that forces me to do things that are right regardless of how I feel. That forces me to analyze different business relationships regardless of how I feel. That forces me to analyze and weigh different business opportunities to make sure that both parties are walking away successful and happy. There are lots of people that will come and present themselves to you that don't have your best interest in business. And there are a lot of people that will sugarcoat or dress themselves up in a way that presents themselves as if they're here to help. And if you're not using logic and allowing them to prove themselves, then you may fall in a trap where you're signing away more of the business than you wanted to for an investment. Or fall into a trap where you're working with someone side by side that signed into your business that never had your goals in mind at all. I used to watch different things on TV where people would come in front of a group of investors and sell themselves. And sometimes different people in the groups would feel shorthanded, while other people would feel like they made a great deal. And that goes to show that not everyone was on the same page with what they were wanting to get. And not everyone was on the same page with the acceptance of the offer that they took. Which is okay. I'm not saying everyone always has to agree. But I'm saying that allow people to prove who they are before you even get into a business connection or a business relationship, so that you can ensure that you're steady moving toward what it is you had in your heart to move towards. There are a lot of businesses that have partnered with the wrong companies. And because of that, their business is not even really their business anymore. They don't have complete say-so over what they want to do, because they've signed away their business prematurely without allowing people to prove who they are in business. There are many ways that you can look at who someone is in business based on their previous interactions, based on the way that they communicate with you consistently, based on their success factors. Every business has success factors. Every business has a pattern. So there are lots of questions and observation tactics and techniques that we need to become accustomed with so that we can better look out for our business. And again, accepting the fact, which is my third point, acceptance, accepting that not everyone is who we think that they are. So we have to make sure that we're protecting ourselves. And some people have asked me, what ways can I protect myself? But making sure that you read through all of the commitments and contracts before you sign. I know it may sound like something that's a no-brainer, but this is something that gets a lot of people. I signed a contract. I'll just give you a story from my personal experience with a company to partner with them. And the company ended up not being ethical. They ended up not paying what they agreed to pay. They ended up going missing for a while. Thank God that I had something in writing to stand on. But they didn't do what was right just because they felt like doing what was right. Now, initially, they were nice. They were friendly. They were welcoming. And so from that interaction, it was about a 30-minute call to an hour. I felt like I could trust this company. Without doing too much research, I just went ahead and I did the partnership. But I didn't give them a chance, and I didn't give myself a chance to actually watch them prove themselves to me. Now, I'm not saying that you have to watch someone for an entire year or watch someone for a whole month, because at that point, in an entrepreneurial stance, you may lose out on a lot of opportunities and deals. But I am saying that sometimes we move so fast that we look over the fine print, so fast that we end up connecting with people that don't have our same vision, so fast that we end up thinking that we're moving our business forward, where in all reality, we're moving forward just to move it back. Because separating or severing ties with a partnership, sometimes that costs money. Sometimes that costs different business agreements to shift and change. Sometimes it changes your money. So the income and the percentages that you thought you would get, you're no longer getting because this plan or this contract, this partnership did not work out. So we want to also be in acceptance and understand and accept who people are when they show us who they are, who businesses are when they show us who they are, so that we can continue moving our business forward. The next point is learning from disappointments and pain. Entrepreneurship is a journey that is not just full of highs and ups, but it's also filled with a lot of lows at times. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that talk about their journeys and their experiences. And not all of them just talk about the good journeys and the good times. I'm seeing more and more entrepreneurs talk about their quote unquote failures. And I'm saying quote unquote because, again, I say this in a lot of podcast episodes, but I'll say it again. I don't consider a loss on your business a failure, because you learn from it. So learning from disappointments and pain and being able to grow even further because of that experience is something that a lot of us need to practice doing. Anytime something doesn't go right in my business, I'm not going to allow that to keep me down. I'm not going to allow that to stop me or throw me off or shut down my vision or stop my purpose. But I'm going to learn from the disappointments and the pain, and I'm going to dust myself off and do better. There have been different partnerships that I have gotten into, different collaborations, different people that I have worked with in business that have disappointed me. And I'm sure that I've disappointed some. And it's painful because, like I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, a lot of times we use our emotion as the driving force. And we're thinking to ourselves, well, how could this person do this? There's an entrepreneur that I know that was stolen from. They hired someone in and they stole their products and left. And that entrepreneur trusted the person that they hired. And then when we were talking about the instance, I asked them, were there any red signs? And they said, yeah. They said that they told me during an interview that they were caught stealing from their previous job. And I felt bad because they couldn't get hired anyplace else, that I gave them a chance. Now, what am I saying with that story? Am I saying don't give anyone a chance? I'm not saying that. Am I saying that people can't change or that they don't change? I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that it's very imperative that we are looking at the overall picture as entrepreneurs to protect ourselves, to protect our business, to protect our customers, to protect our clients. There will be things that disappoint you in business if you stay in business long enough. There will be people that let you down in business if you stay in business long enough. But it's what you do with that disappointment and pain that is going to separate the business owners that stay in business versus the ones that decide not to because of a poor experience. The last tip that I have is no grudges, just understanding. No grudges, just understanding. So regardless of where you're at in your business or what type of partnerships you have encountered, what type of partnerships you have severed from, what person or what business has betrayed you, what person or what business did not follow through with what they agreed to do. As entrepreneurs, a lot of times that means being the bigger person and taking the high road. There's some things that you just won't understand. But holding grudges and harboring anger, I did a podcast on harboring anger, I believe it was last year. It's only going to stunt our growth and block our vision from what it is we really need to be focused on. Of everything that needs to be done with my business, I choose not to spend time harboring anger. I choose to spend time looking at ways to productively grow my business, looking at ways to partner with other businesses and other people that are going to bring value to my business and also that I can provide value to in return. A lot of times we have taken losses as entrepreneurs because even when we allowed people to prove themselves, we didn't believe who they were. We didn't believe or take the sign that the partnership that we were going into wasn't the right one to go into. Now, I don't know who this message is for, but if you do have a pending partnership option or offer, allow that company to prove who they are. Do research. Ask for statistics. Ask questions. Be observant. Listen to how they respond to you. Listen to how they interact with you. Listen to see if they're talking about anyone negatively. There was an instance where someone came to me and they were excited because they said, I think I'm going to work with this company. And this company pretty much just bad talk the other person that had the position or that has the position currently. But I'm excited because they really don't like that person and they're going to work with me because they can see that I'm a better fit. And I immediately thought about looking at someone's character. And I couldn't help but think, well, if they're going to talk about who's already working for them, then what makes you think that they're not going to talk about you when you do something wrong to the next person that's applying for your job or the next person that's applying for that partnership or the next person that's applying for that role? So instead of believing that, maybe the owners that I'm looking to work with or collaborate with, maybe they aren't as ethical, or maybe they're not as professional as they present themselves to be, or maybe they're a little messy. Maybe I don't want to do this. We're so emotionally taken because they're giving us accolades, even though they're putting someone else down. Not saying that they're bad people. Not saying that they intentionally wanted to dog someone out. But just saying, look at how people interact. Accept who they are when they interact with you. so that even if you go into a partnership or you go into a job or a new opportunity, you know who you're working with. There are so many businesses that have taken unnecessary losses just by teaming up with the wrong people, just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time, just by not being able to move forward because they were so emotionally connected to someone or something that wasn't productive for their business. We have to care for our business like it's our baby. And when people used to say that, I really didn't understand where they were coming from. I'm like, what do you mean care for it like it's your baby? But yes, care for it and protect it. With your baby, you protect your baby. You make sure that you're feeding your baby. You make sure that you're giving attention to your baby. You make sure that your baby is a priority. You make sure that no one's going to try to mess with your baby. You read reviews when you're looking for nannies, right? Or babysitters. You read reviews when you're looking at different doctor's offices and pediatricians. So we need to get to the place where we're treating our business like our baby and believing who people prove themselves to be in business before we decide to move forward and connect with businesses and people that really don't have the same interest and that really aren't being honest or that really can provide some source of loss to your business. Now, don't get me wrong, there's always a chance of loss when you're in business. There's always that chance. But if we can lower that rate and that percentage by making sure that we do our due diligence on our end, it's something that's definitely worth doing. Definitely worth doing. So I really hope that you got something out of this episode. Like I say in every episode, I don't want the conversation to end. If you would like to be a guest on the Brittney Bundles podcast or feature a product or service of yours on this podcast, please be sure to email me at btalks@yahoo.com. That is btalks, BTALKS @yahoo.com. Also follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Brittney_bundles. That is Brittney, BRITTNEY _bundles, BUNDLES. I'm on Facebook, Brittney Bundles, YouTube, Brittney Bundles, and Twitter, Brittney Bundles. Until next time, I'll talk to you all in the next podcast episode.